To put on a new roof.
I don't care.
Has to be done.
What's going great?
Nice and quiet.
You'll be in executive session in 10 minutes. Tim,
That'd be stock piece of college.
well, that to me is
I'm gonna
gone.
thank them.
Hi, Brian.
At 6 o'clock, we're gonna get right into it. Is there anything for public comment this evening?
Yep. All right. I'm here to thank you for passing the resolution in support of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act back in November. Susie and I were actually on our way to Capitol Hill to lobby for that bill, and so I wasn't able to come speak with you then. So I felt like I wanted to do it personally. Tom, I think, carried the heaviest weight on that, and I've already given him one of these lapel pins that says price carbon. Barb, you seconded the motion, if I recall correctly, and you've always had a healthy skepticism, which I greatly appreciate. You asked lots of questions, and you were receptive to information, came around to being a supporter, and I really appreciate that. Meg, you weren't here, actually, but I think you've been a long-term supporter. That's my
Send my
sense.
support from afar.
Yeah.
It's like carrier pigeon,
And
right?
you can't even eat it.
Chuck, at the time I was gonna meet with you, you had a newborn who was in trouble.
Yep.
And I hope that's straightened out.
Everything's great.
Straightened out.
Yep,
Good.
he's on a great track, so we're in good shape.
Awesome. And you too supported the bill.
Yes.
Supported the resolution, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim.
And Michael, you were reluctant, but you made it unanimous, which is very important to me. And I really appreciate the time that you took to talk it over. So,
Thank you very much.
there you go. And you should all know that
He's good to go.
Tom forwarded a digital copy to me. I printed it out. We took it to Capitol Hill. Elise Stefanik's new legislative director was very pleased to get that. So, thank you again. And does anyone have any questions?
For the record, do we need to have him identify himself?
Nope, we don't
Okay,
do that
just wanna
anymore.
make sure.
If they're
Okay.
open to providing their name and address for the record, they can, but they don't have to.
Well, my name is Tim Palmer. You all know. I'm notorious. So,
I don't want to identify
All right.
myself either.
Thank you,
I
Tim.
don't have any choice here.
But Michael is right.
So, if there are no questions, that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you
No,
very
thanks
much.
an awful lot.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much
much.
for taking time. See you Tuesday, Tim.
See you then.
Brian, allow for just a little patience, because we are gonna need to have an executive session tonight. So I wanna get through, well, Brian's part of it, so I wanna get through a couple of quick business items first, and we're gonna skip supervisor's report. The American Legion Post 1619, as you remember, was having Winterfest. It got delayed. We need to adopt a resolution allowing them to have their fireworks tomorrow, actually. So, and kudos to Kevin for working that out with them. Kevin, can you read the resolution, please?
Yes. Whereas Fountain Brothers Post 1619 has duly submitted to the Town of Plattsburgh Town Board an application for a permit for the public display of fireworks to be held on February 14th, 2020, to take place at American Legion Post 1619, situated along the Rand Hill Road, the Town of Plattsburgh, and whereas the town clerk has verified that all required documentation and fees have been received, and the town attorney approving the application and liability insurance coverage as to form, and the Fountain Brothers Post 1619 is the controlling agency of the land on which the public display of fireworks is to be held, having also approved of the granting of said application by the town. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the town clerk being, he hereby is authorized and directed to issue the required permit for the public display of fireworks by the applicant on Friday, February 14th, 2020, at American Legion Post 1619. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the finance manager, codes officer, town clerk, and Cool Insurance.
Is there a motion to this effect?
So moved.
Costick, is there a second?
Second.
Dave, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So does carry, thank you very much. Resolution 32 is a request to advertise for a 2021 tandem axe plow truck with trade. Does anyone from the Highway Committee want to speak to this item?
Well, this particular truck is one that's given us a hard time all along, and in fact, that's why we went to a different brand. We're not getting that type of truck anymore. It's broken down quite a few times. The cost of repairing continues to escalate, and they feel that it's best if we get rid of this, get one that's reliable. They've been short on at least one truck recently, and then they need one that's reliable, and they're going to do the best they can in terms of moving the money around to be able to get this. It will not put us, we will still continue our regular, and we'll purchase a regular truck that we do every 2 years. This will be an addition.
Let me ask you a question. Is it not possible to get this truck through the state, through that type of contract?
And what would that get us?
They're doing it through spec
Huh?
bill.
No, I'm saying sometimes you can go through the state of New York and get them as opposed to going out to bidding. Was this
Well-
not available under state contract?
I'm not saying it isn't, just saying that what Tim does, is look into whichever way is the least costly way of doing it, and whether it's getting parts from one place and another, or transferring them from another. I'm not positive on that.
No, I'm just saying, maybe it isn't available under state contract. I'm just saying if it is, it's usually a lot easier to get under state contract.
Thanks for one, John.
Kevin, do you mind reading this into the record for consideration?
Whereas Tim Dubray, Highway Superintendent, has met with the Highway Committee to discuss his request to solicit bids for a 2021 tandem axle plow truck with trade of a 2011 International Workstar plow truck, and whereas the Highway Committee has reviewed the department's needs and the proposed specifications, and it is their recommendation that the request be approved. Therefore, be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to have an advertisement published for 5 consecutive days in the Press Republican for sealed bids with a non-collusive bid form entitled New Tandem Axle Plow Truck 2021 with Trade, returnable on or before February 24th, 2020 at 2 p.m. prevailing time at the Town Hall Office Complex, 151 Banker Road, Plattsburgh, New York, 12901, at which time the town clerk will publicly open the bids. And be it further resolved, specification forms for this contract may be obtained from the town clerk's office during regular business hours, and it is further resolved that the town board reserves the right to reject any or all bids offered. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the town clerk and the highway superintendent.
Is there a motion to the effect?
So moved.
Hebert, is there a second?
Second.
Wait, any discussion?
So it isn't necessarily a purchase, this is getting it in the paper right away, so we can get the bids. Still could go another way if we needed to.
The one question I would have, Tom, I know we had a previous discussion, is Tim pursued the software package, the maintenance software package at all? I know he was gonna look at that.
You talking about the
Would you-
inventory of assets?
Not the inventory of
Okay.
assets, it was actually a maintenance program where they would be able to track what's being done with each one of the vehicles, including registrations, et
That's
cetera.
moving, that's moving. forward.
Okay, yeah, especially from the mechanical standpoint, because instead of pulling out a file folder and adding up a bunch of
Mhm.
invoices, you're gonna be able to tell how much work has been done on an individual truck. And the one in question, yeah, it's,
Yeah, we had a discussion
the
about that.
repairs is far outweighed.
Yeah, we had asked about that because of also just the inventory of what we have for fleet maintenance
Yeah.
as well.
Well, yeah, and that's what you talked about, fleet
Yeah.
maintenance.
And this
especially.
particular vehicle that they're trying to get rid of is worse than the ones that we have that are 18 years old.
I know exactly which one it is, it's, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So does carry.
And we're not the only town that has gone through that with this particular.
One last resolution for consideration, shared services agreement between the towns of Plattsburgh and Ellenburg for standalone mausoleum.
Whereas Plattsburgh and Ellenburg wish to enter into an agreement to formalize the terms, conditions, and obligations of each town, and whereas Ellenburg wishes to amend Section 3 and Section 4 of the agreement to $400, now, therefore be it resolved that after review by the town attorney, the supervisor is duly authorized and empowered to execute the attached agreement on behalf of the town of Plattsburgh, and be it further resolved, and a copy of this resolution is be given to the town clerk, finance manager, and town of Ellenburg supervisor.
Is there a motion for discussion? LaFave, is there a second?
Second.
Bostic. Just to put some more context behind this, we are doing an intermunicipal agreement with Ellenburg for the services. They've had a chance to go further into their books as far as what they need to be able to sustain that program. You remember, if someone is being entombed from the contractual services, it will be billed to the individual. Only in the cases where someone had prepaid those services, it would come out of the perpetual care. So for them to do the entombment, they have asked kindly enough to have that changed.
What was the original agreement?
$300.
Okay, I can remember.
Yep.
And I didn't go back.
So, and there was a chance that they were going to do this through recommendation because they were still looking at their books, but they wanted us to have an agreement, and it looks like the mausoleum will transfer between the periods of, I'm giving you a window now, possibly between February 24th, early March. There is a, would you call it a trial or more of a public hearing?
Well, it's what they call an order to show cause. You go before Judge Ellis, and he is going to tell us that under the law, the say facilities are being abandoned, and typically it's the obligation of the town which they're to be, they're located, to take them over, which we're willing to do. We're also, as everybody knows, we're gonna get the money from, I think total, I talked to Dave Fleming today, I think it'd be in the vicinity of maybe 300,000 or something of that nature. And also, the fees that we have paid out to Dave Fleming, we can pull these fees out of the money we're getting and pay Fleming, that's permitted. And the rest of the money will be in a special account for perpetual care or mausoleum purposes.
So we still have a couple other things to clean up. Let me finish this and then. So again, just trying to encapsulate this will be the year of learning as we go through it. The one thing that I appreciate, many things about Connie, who's been our receiver, but she has been really trying to work with them to make sure that no one is at odds about this. So we're passing the same types of resolutions between our two communities to make sure that there's parity or, kind of equal bookends, okay? So, like I said, there will be a period where there may be a flurry of activity. This, again, may be the initiation of some of that. I would assume in the next week or so, we may have another resolution before us to kind of close things up, so.
So Michael, the receivership, which has an extension, right, at this point, that will end immediately with that window of time is March 1st?
A judge basically can order the receivership to end.
Okay.
I do not anticipate it ending actually on the 24th
Okay.
itself, but that is the first kind of chapter of when the last of the final activity. I mean, we thought this was gonna happen in December. A year or two ago, we thought it, you know what I mean?
No,
So
no,
I'm not holding my breath yet until the judge finally does a determination.
And I'm asking only because in case there's just loose ends,
Oh, yeah.
it would be nice to not just end it and then move to the next chapter, but to carry it
And
on.
Connie has committed to doing training for both of the town clerks and a couple other
Good.
things, so
I was
we're,
gonna say the town clerk was a bit distraught. I don't
yeah,
know.
that was before, yes.
Is, Jim said that it was $300, is that to be split between two towns or $300 each town?
We're 300,000.
That's what I meant,
Those zeros, I
300,000.
know, yeah.
There was 300 was for the change.
I wouldn't quote Jim on that number because the.
I'm just saying, is
yes,
it between the
each.
two or
Assets,
each?
the
No, no, each.
Oh, good.
the assets will be split 50-50, so,
So each will supposedly get in the range of that.
Right,
okay. All those in favor,
I
please.
still don't understand what you talk about with section 3 and section 4. What are we paying for? The
The
extra $100 is for?
Entombment.
Oh,
So
entombment.
say I pass and, I'm planning on going to the mausoleum.
It's a lot better, more chance that I will first, but go ahead.
You never know.
But the entombment, cost a certain amount of money to have their folks come down and to do
Transport.
transport,
Yeah.
so, yep.
Yes, the
Okay,
town of
so each
Ellenberg,
one.
people that are actually coming
Yes.
down to do it, because they have the training, et cetera, to
Right.
handle it.
Yeah.
You know, do whatever they have to do to pull.
But this money comes out of the
There,
fund?
there's two ways that it potentially can occur, okay? The more traditional way is my estate, you know, or Olivia would have to pay the $400 for the final entombment, okay? In most cases, it was not built into the contract when you purchased the space, okay? Just like with a grave, a lot of times there's a final, you know, graveside, you know, fee type thing. But in some cases, there may be a handful or so contracts that have that built into it, but the perpetual care in that particular case, we could take that out of our perpetual care fund to address it if needed be, so.
So, in other words, in any future contracts that we have with people, we include the cost.
That's, I'll get into that conversation separately, because our insurance agent, Jack Beniak from Cool, has formally recommended that we do not sell additional crypt spaces. So the recommendation would be, you won't need more contracts because we would not sell more crypt spaces.
It will be as is when.
And we'll talk about that once the transfer occurs, when we make some final determinations on
I
that.
have another question, this probably doesn't really pertain to any of this, but suppose somebody is there now and wants out. I
Yeah.
mean, so will the town clerk be the one to deal with that, or will there be another layer of?
We will be some of that stuff is still being transferred. Some of the records will be retained here at the town, some of them will be retained in Ellenberg, because some of them were kind of this joint collaboration
Yep.
and stuff, and that's why Connie will be doing the training for both.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But
it
people
will be
could-
through clerks and so on.
But people can still, if they opted, say, someone moves to Florida and their loved one passed a year or two ago, and they can't bear not to have their loved one interred, you know,
Yeah,
close
here.
by,
Yeah.
and they wanted to have them placed down in Florida, they can still do that.
So that can be done,
That can
and
still
the
be
cost would be borne by them.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, okay.
And I would think, Tom, too, this money, I would think would be collected typically by a funeral director anyways. I don't think you'd be doing it. I would think that that would be part of their arrangement normally.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, thank you very much. Brian, come on down. And the last thing I'll say, just as Brian's belling up, is we do have several other draft items, one of which is Dave Duquette has notified us of his intent to step down from his position. So we will be in the process of recruiting a new individual for that position, so just an FYI for that. Brian's here tonight to give us a very kind of, let's say, 500,000 view, 800,000 view, conversation regarding assessing in the town, and then we have, some items for executive session to go over for some certiorari items, so,
You know, if you wanna do the executive session there, I'll just pack up and leave, it's not a problem.
okay, thanks.
Turn off the camera, if you
Yeah, I thought I'd leave that in here. You can bring it over to my house later while you assess me.
All right.
I didn't keep my own copy, but that's all
Here.
right. What you have,
Which one
no,
is
no,
it?
no, no, I know I'm 85%.
Yeah.
So one of these, I did myself, my own research and analysis of the assessment roll, and where we stand as what the state would call level of assessment. I come up with 85%, compared to where they want you to be between 95 and 105. My analysis is going to be strictly residential. The other analysis where you see the red, that comes from the state of New York, and they're looking at the whole county. And they show, what, 89, 88%? So, but their analysis also includes industrial, vacant land, and commercial. So it will be a little higher than just strictly residential. It's the residential that we're mostly graded upon. So, in the $500,000 foot level, it basically says I'm 15% behind throughout the town for residential housing and level of assessment. acceptable form of assessment to me.
Do you wanna
It
repeat that?
is, it is an acceptable form to others. So there's two ways to do valuation. You can say, okay, here's my number, slap everybody up 10%, call it a day, or 15%, call it a day to get to my 100. Or you can go through each neighborhood and do an appraisal, basically, a comparative and a market analysis, and look at your sales, look at the house, and adjust everybody on an individual basis. Now, trending is not good because it would, it's not demographically good on the highs or lows of your value demographics. Everybody at different levels sees appreciation and depreciation at different rates. Very rarely are we gonna see the $100,000 house drop or go up by the same amount the $300,000 house has. And our markets have shown a significant change over the last few years, where the $300,000 house has actually come down in value, where the entry level has gone up in value. So we have a cross purpose. So doing the comparative market analysis for every one of these properties brings them to wherever the market is per that demographic. Okay? And that is, at the end of the day, come May, my goal is going to be difficult to achieve in the short time I have, but by the time I publish my tentative assessment roll, I was hoping to see, go through about 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 houses. And I've got 600 done already, so been sidetracked the last couple of weeks with other things, so I'm off a little pace in order to accomplish the total goal. What I have chosen to do is take the neighborhoods that I know have jumped the highest, the most, and working on them first, and tricking my way down to the neighborhoods that have shown a little less movement on the upwards bounce. And in my world, I have broken up homes into demographic, similar styles, similar things. So we can use Champlain Park, because Deb and I just talked about it. We can use Cliff Haven, because they're considered, they're different neighborhoods. So their comps are coming from those neighborhoods. I have a neighborhood 374 in North, up to, I've broken it off to Military Turnpike West and Military Turnpike East. And then you have Moffett Road and a little subdivision there. You have Archie Bordeaux Road and a little subdivision there. We have, Pine Ridge, Kimberly, Barkham, Pine Brook, Newell. So those demographics are all to be looked at. So they're clumped in. And when I do my comparable analysis, we're using sales from those neighborhoods that are very similar to each other. That's it in a nutshell. Not good news, but very good news, because if we can move total assessment up, it means tax rates are gonna go down, as we are limited by the levy. You can't, governor says 2%. That's what it is. Everybody's, you're, what do we call the word? You're restricted to that. There's no going away. A lot of what the governor did is actually because of the school systems too.
So really the motivation behind this though is making the equity, because so many of them have not been examined in a period of time. That is the motivation.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's also to recognize that it doesn't really matter which home you're in. There has been an equity growth over the past couple of years. And I'm hoping the population of homeowners has looked around and said, oh my God, my neighbor sold to that. Oh my God, that neighbor sold to that. So, because it's not a blind side, it's gotta be, and as you can see on the county one, we're not the only town that needs to have somebody re-examined. And on the county one, a lot of those neighborhoods have been done last year, where I can say, because of some issues in my personal life and the changing to Rachel to thing, that I didn't do valuation last year. I was like, whoa, I just don't have it with the external, those stresses. So so I left it, and I said, well, okay, we're gonna go for an equalization rate, and it didn't happen. I scraped by with a 90% from the state last year, so they allowed, or 95%, they allowed me to continue on, and the state gave us a grade of 100%, where in theory I was probably at 94.9, and then there was a big jump in the last year itself. I mean, a large jump in the market, which has dropped me 10%. So you'll see, there's a bunch of numbers you're not gonna understand, but that's the information that I'm supposed to learn and know.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question, right, where does the state get their information to say we're over or under?
They're taking the assessment roll and they're comparing the assessed values to sale prices just like I would do.
Okay.
But they are also including the commercial, the vacant land, and the industrial
They must have
sales.
quite a data bank to do that.
And it's gonna get larger because the real property system is changing, and they're gonna send all my, anytime I get on a computer, it's going to Albany directly. And it's a web-based program they're moving to. Tyler Technologies is building the program. There's a plus and a minus to that, because Tyler Technologies, we just hired here for finance. So the concept here is hopefully when we're up to speed in the mine department, or in the real property world, those re-levies are just automatically done. Instead of taking Rachel a week to type them all in, they'll be just migrated into the
I
system.
think the helpful part of the upgrading in technology is a lot of this stuff was so government has never done technology well.
I agree.
Right? I mean,
I agree.
outside of pictometry, you know what I mean?
And that's
Like, it's
private.
one of the few tools that really, I think, was designed with government in mind. Tyler is at more of the forefront of it. You can start to capture things better and see where you are, so.
I agree, and, you know, it's fortunate, I didn't do the finance water sewer billing software. That somebody else said, we're going with Tyler Technology. I was like, well, you know, that bodes well for us. If it meshes in a good shape, we're saving man-hours. We're gonna be saving at least 40 hours on Rachel's time.
One of the questions I had for you, Debbie, and I just know that you've done this in the past, you've hosted Brian for like some community workshops and stuff. Do you feel that that would be of value to some of the people?
It might be.
You know, and I just think from time to time, being at the forefront of just giving people an opportunity for some education, you know, and reminder, people don't like to see things go up, but you know, in the end though, when you're going, as Brian says, when you're going to sell your house, you want the value of what.
I think, you know, Brian has the ability to explain it so that people can understand it. It's a complicated.
Yeah.
It
You
is,
know, it is
because
very complicated.
some-
People don't need to know all the complicated parts, but
Yep.
you can explain it in such a way that they can understand why it's necessary.
Well, I personally would support
I think-
Brian, I know that, you know, you don't always love being in that spotlight,
No.
but I think that you are able to take the very complex, you know, or complex for some, and lay it out in very simple terms and answer some questions that it can, you know, erase some of the anxiety that people have about that. You know, especially for, you know, Champlain Park. There's a lot of people that are first-time homeowners, you know, or people that have been there for a long time, and, you know, when you see, oh my God, my assessment's going up, what does this mean exactly? Allowing that to roll out could be really helpful, so.
Yeah, I'll do some inquiry and see, and then kind of get together with Brian and see if we can put something together.
appreciate it, because I feel that I'd be crucified long before I even get a value on it, so.
No,
Well, when is the anticipation of this coming? I know you said this year, but
Notifications for any assessment change or exemption denial is sent out on the 1st of May.
so,
And then
so
you have-
you will be doing the reassessing the 1st of May, is that what you're starting
it's
then?
going
No, he's
now.
starting
Oh,
now.
it's going now, okay.
The finish date is 1st of May.
It's the 1st of May, okay, so it's right now.
And so, what will happen is any notices were sent out the 1st of May,
Yep,
so
yep.
that they have the grievance period.
Yep.
And then grievance the 4th Tuesday in May, I think it's May 26th this year,
Okay.
4 to 8, which we have to address as well. Rachel had nobody last year, so.
it could change obviously this year.
And with nobody around, she really has no experience on that format, because we had one person come at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I didn't change anything, so so nobody comes in,
Right.
right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It could
This
change.
year, it could be
It could be
a
double digits.
crowd,
Yeah.
right?
Isn't the star, is there gonna be some changes in the star as well? Did I read that in the newspaper?
Star is, Governor Cuomo changed the whole format and he retroacted the format to March 1st, 2015. So, what you do now is you sign up with the state of New York,
Yeah.
you're new,
Yeah.
right? If you're existing, well, this is actually good, if you're existing with your exemption, basic or senior star, your exemption has been frozen. So whatever the rate was in the school districts, it is stuck. Let's say you had a basic star, 30,000, the school rate was 20, is
Mhm.
$600.
Right.
It will never change. It'll always be that amount. Where if the governor wants you to swing over to what's called the star credit, and what he's doing is you get your full school bill, and there's a reason for it, and then he mails you the check for $600 to help pay it. Okay, that goes up to, may go up 2% on an annual basis. May go up. The emphasis is may. This year, definitely 2%, because he's selling the program. Gotta turn these things off. So, if you're buying brand new, you have to get the check. Now, the reason that he has proposed this is the school districts run short on money. By the time they get to collect in September, as their budgets begin July 1, go to June 30. So schools were running out of money before they got fresh coffers, and they went and complained, because now they have to borrow money to finish out their year. Now you got the price of the note, the bond, the interest, the whole 9 yards. Where now, everybody's paying full, they don't anticipate having to borrow money down the road. So there was some politics involved in this.
Yeah.
Also, because of the double dipping that was rampant throughout the state, the governor figured the state of New York could do a better job. And he's working harder as they have access to tax and finance. They can see your cash flow and they can see where you are, and they double check down in Albany to make sure you're not double dipping, so. Any other questions?
No, well, it kind of plays in with the assessment and the tax rate and, the star and on.
Sure.
So there may be questions about
And
that, I don't know.
I can safely say that any octogenarian that called about it opted not to. And the reason being is they're on fixed income, fixed pension, fixed social security, little growth in any of that. And so they have their bills, and they know their bills, and they know the school bill comes lower, they swing it. Same advice I gave to my parents who are octogenarians. But if you're 65, you may get an increase over the time. So when you're turning 65, the credit program may behoove to go that way, because 10 years at possibly 2% a year would provide you with a larger check to pay those bills as the school taxes go up as well. There's no stopping that.
All right. We're gonna wrap this part of it up, and I would accept a motion to go into executive session regarding certiorari for KeyBank, Walmart, Pyramid, Salt, and also, Barb, you wanted to add an
Yeah,
additional
please.
item?
For the executive session, but
Yeah.
before we move to that, Michael, can I introduce the volunteer appointment?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it won't take long, so, as you know, we have a volunteer appointment application that we've created as a team to canvass for interest in serving on various committees or boards. So last week I introduced and I gave everybody a copy of a volunteer appointment application, and this is for a position that is vacant currently on the finance committee. So I wanted to make sure that I introduce that tonight in terms of the interested party that we have, and that hopefully we can move to a recommendation to move this forward. So I didn't know if any of my colleagues had any questions or comments. The individual that has submitted the volunteer appointment application, I met with her, I'm on the finance committee, so that was important. As well as she was invited to attend a finance committee meeting that got canceled due to, unfortunately, Pat was ill. But, so just letting you know what were some of the steps involved in getting to this point. Any questions?
It sounds like she has some tremendous experience for that type of job.
Yeah,
committee.
Like you said, if anybody has any questions or wants to comment on
Just talk to Deborah and have her
Okay.
mock up one for next week for
Yeah.
consideration. Okay.
okay, thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Did you have an item that you wanted to extend for,
Oh, for the executive session, yes, I make a motion that pending litigation that is regarding pertaining to an accident that occurred where a light pole was damaged. Okay?
and friendly amendment, will you also accept in the motion Key Bank, Walmart, Pyramid, Self for service?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that effect?
Second.
Caustic. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will go into executive session at 6:36.
In 2 minutes.